Hey nerds, welcome to another episode of the Nerd Rundown Recap. I am Erik Hare, and with me tonight is my main man, Darren Stemple.
We light the way.
See, I knew it. I knew there was a question mark. If I put a question mark on there, you'd read it that way. Today we'll be recapping and offering commentary on the latest episode of the HBO series, House of the Dragon, Episode 5, We Light the Way. And it's just a declarative statement, I believe. It's not
a question.
Not a question. So if you would, I am going to ask you a question. You in the audience is actually, I'm going to ask you quite a few questions as well, Darren. But I am going to ask the people in the audience who are listening on audio or on YouTube to please hit the like button and the subscribe button if you haven't. And if you would, if you're watching House of the Dragon and you want to kind of interact with us and talk to us about it, that'd be great. Leave a comment in the video. It really helps the channel a great deal. So moving into the show agenda, let's talk about your overall impressions, Darren, of episode 5. We all really loved episode 4 last week. So let's talk about your initial impressions of episode 4. I'm sorry, episode 5.
Episode 5. Yeah, I thought it was the weakest of the season. And in being the weakest of the season, it still was a very, very, very good episode.
Yeah.
A lot of major things happened in this episode, and a lot of things that will have lasting effects for a long time.
Correct.
For a lot of houses.
Yeah.
So the underbelly of this episode is that it may not have had a lot happen in the episode, but a lot will happen because of what happened in the episode. Follow me?
Yeah, if this episode and last episode, I think major kind of strategic moves were happening across both of these episodes. And I'm really glad that they took the time to kind of set both of these things up because they really do put us in motion, I think, for the action that's going to be coming. And there's quite a bit of action that's coming down the road. So, and you really did need to set all this stuff up because these chess pieces need to be put into place before the real game of Thrones starts, or in this case, the Dance of the Dragons. So
yes. Good part.
Yeah. So let's talk about our favorite bad boy. Opens well. Up to this point, we have not been introduced really to Daemon's wife. He only alludes to her as the bronze bitch, and that she's ugly and that she's frigid and all this other stuff. So the opening sequence of the show is we get to finally meet Lady Rhea Royce of Ruinstone. Say that 3 times real fast, but so we get to meet her, and then she's talking to another guy who turns out to be Jon Royce, who was the leader of the Knights of the Vale, and so he will come back.
Sorry, Jon Royce is the guy from Game of Thrones.
Oh, right. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Yep. So
her cousin, though, I'll look his name up.
So we do meet her cousin at the very beginning of the episode with her, and he will play an important role later on in the sequence. But we'll kind of dig back into that a little bit later. So, but we see Rhea riding through the hills. She's out hunting deer, she said, and so you can clearly see just in the few seconds that they show her that she's a pretty sophisticated rider. She's riding over some pretty tough terrain and stuff like that. So, and then we come across Daemon at the Vale, I guess. Is that where or the Eyrie? Is that where they were supposedly?
Ruinstone is in the Eyrie. The Vale is with the moon door where they toss people out of.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, this House Royce is an important house. So much right now, but there will be with he's the old guy who wore the biggest chest plate armor of all time, and he was with Littlefinger in the final seasons as he was the leader of the Knights of the Vale.
Right.
The important character moving forward, or important house moving forward after this.
Right.
Daemon basically just kind of stole a lot from them.
Well, yeah, because he's an a-hole is really what it comes
Right,
down
yeah.
to. So
Yeah.
he finally is done with Rhea Royce, and he murders her in the very opening scene. So
Yep.
and so it's
Possible change from the books because it's not very much. It's not stated that Damon kills her. In the books.
correct. Yes, it's just that she fell off her horse and cracked her head open. So that's basically all they say. And, so there's plausible deniability there that that's exactly what happened, but it just seemed an odd line, from at least from the producers, what I had heard that they said it was kind of an odd line in there and they kind of read into it that perhaps maybe Damon killed her. So, but regardless of how she gets killed, whether it's from Damon or whether it's from a true horseback riding accident, she's out of the picture, which leaves Damon free to do what he wants to do. So so we move into the next scene.
Her lands and all of her.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying later on. We'll kind of come back to her cousins. Yep. Put a pin in that. We'll come back to it. So so then we move to a cutscene. We'll talk about this very, very quickly. A cutscene of Viserys, and now we get kind of introduced to it looks like it looks like what's his name? Larys Strong is now the new Hand of the King. So they are traveling over the seas, heading to somewhere, but we think that it's most likely to go see the Sea Snake and talk with him about whatever. So, but Viserys is extremely seasick. And what did you think of that quick scene? Because we don't have to dwell on it for very long, but I just was kind of curious.
But it's important to start seeing
because it starts to set a pattern. It sets a pattern.
And there's certain patterns in this whole episode for certain characters that have these lasting effects, and this is the real start, like physical downfall of Viserys. He gets seasick. He gets to Driftmark, the castle that Lord Valerius Cool. Why can't I say his name? Corlys Valerian. Yes. I was putting the V before the horse. Anyway, this whole place, it's crazy. It's hard to get there. There's actually a different castle that you can only get to during high tide. It's actually called high tide. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Rhaenyra sees him throwing up and starts getting it in her head that my time could be any moment.
Yep.
Which sets her down a little bit of a pattern in this episode. So it's really just this good metaphor for his reign. He can't handle the storm of shit that gets thrown his way every time. He gets the Driftmark. He's tired. He can barely stand. They don't even greet him.
Well, let's come back to that. Let's come back to that because we do just see a brief scene of him in there,
really
and we have a cut scene, and really these two scenes prior to this that we just talked about, they're important, but maybe not as critical as the very next scene, which I thought was really great. It's a scene of Otto readying a horse to leave King's Landing. So he's been fired as the Hand of the King. And his daughter Alicent comes out, the queen consort. She comes out and she says, that she comes out to say goodbye to him, but basically, I wouldn't say apologize, but she just tries to explain why her rationale is for what she's doing. And really Otto, he gives his daughter more credit than she's due in some respects. And he
also kind of blames her.
He does blame her, for because she didn't back him up when Viserys was asking. She believes Rhaenyra, and she doesn't see the strategic moves that are coming down the road, and Otto clearly just lays it out for her. So what does he kind of tell her in that particular scene? Because this scene was huge, and it's very quick. It's not like, but it really, you can see the pieces click into place for Alicent in that scene. So
I made this call out last week where I talked about the ramifications of Otto being taken away and Alicent needing to step up. And here's the scene where that chess piece gets moved into place.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's an incredible scene of Otto. It's the only Otto we get in the whole entire episode. And Rhys Ifans just murders it.
Yeah.
Because you can't tell if he is he's the little finger of the story. Is he scheming, or does he actually have like concern for the realm?
Right.
When he talks to Alicent, like, Aegon has to be named heir to the throne because the realm will be put to the torch.
And I think he genuinely, I maybe it's because of Rhys's performance, but I do believe that he genuinely, because you can't have open war, because if you have open war within the realm, anything can happen. Anything can happen. And he is smart enough to realize that once that happens, no one is safe. Not the high towers, not anyone. Doesn't matter. And especially his house. If and that's the situation that they are in. He knows.
Well, put a pin in this, by the way, because this will come back in a later scene.
Yeah. So Otto, but Otto does tell her. He says, "Look, in this particular instance, this is how things are going to go. If Rhaenyra is made the heir to the throne, if she is made queen, they will have open war among all the houses of the realm. That you will have open war, and you can either prepare Aegon to be king of the realm, or you can hope that Rhaenyra doesn't." That Rhaenyra is a merciful person, and that she's going to take care of you, because and that's really what it comes down to. He clearly spells it out to her, and you can see on her face that she had not quite made that connection. She does love Rhaenyra, she does trust Rhaenyra, but now she's like, oh crap, I don't think her dad, I think, was protecting her prior to this point, and
her trust will be broken later.
Right. But she doesn't understand the full ramifications of what this means for her and her children.
Yeah. And this is the first of 3 things that happened to Alicent in this episode.
Right.
That turned the tide.
Right. So now we go back to what you were saying earlier. So
Driftmark.
We go back to Driftmark. We see Viserys, Rhaenyra, and the new hand of the king, Lord Strong, arrive at Driftmark. Corlys and Rhaenys, they, like you said earlier, they stand him up. Like, they kind of stand him up. Like, they definitely stand him up. They make the king
think about
wait.
Robert Baratheon showing up at Winterfell in episode 1 of Game of Thrones, and the absolute red carpet that they roll out for the king.
Yep.
They do not get that. But Viserys he's so tired. He's such a he doesn't want to create any drama.
Right.
He's just like, F it, dude. Let's go inside. I'm tired. Right. And it's like you can disrespect this king. And there's another moment that shows this later on too, at the party later on. What is Viserys going to do?
Right.
And there's a question in this episode when he's getting treated, that I'm taking that pen from earlier. I'm going to take it here too, and we'll get to it later on. But talk about the deal that Viserys makes with Corlys.
Yeah, so he walks. So it's not only do they stand him up and make him wait. Then they say, he makes the offer of Rhaenyra to their son Laenor, and they're like, well, I guess it sounds okay, but there's some conditions that need to be met first. Like, we have questions and concerns before we agree to this marriage. And it's like, wait a minute, like, the king is like, who's the one that's actually in control here? And again, Viserys, and instead of being the kingly thing and go, you know what, that maybe I'm making a mistake. Maybe I'll marry her off to Daemon or something, like maybe I'll figure something else out. He almost bends the knee to them, if you will, and says, well, yeah, what are your conditions? And so they want to make sure that the kids are named after the Valerians. And so he says, well,
and a great line.
Yeah, he says, well, they'll they'll be Valerians from birth, but once they ascend to the throne, they will be a Targaryen. And so that was pretty cool. Well, I think there was another condition too that they had wanted.
Well, when there was a first offer, and Viserys is like, you want me to end the Targaryen dynasty? I love when they say it that way.
Yeah.
With my daughter, I don't think so, Tim.
Right. Oh, that's right. They asked if she would take his name.
That's right. Yep.
He's like, forget about it. So Viserys does at least have a backbone, and they said, well, okay, well, what about the children? Whose name will they take? And he says, you know what? That's fine. They can, I'll make a compromise with you, and they'll take the Valerian name initially, but when they ascend to the throne, they'll be a Targaryen. So because of
Aegon's vision.
Because of Aegon's vision. It has to be a Targaryen that sits on the throne.
Has to be a Targaryen on the throne. It's not only just like the legacy of the Targaryens. It's holding up Aegon's vision.
Right.
And so that's
really him and Rhaenyra are the only ones that know this. Right. They're the only ones that know this. And so everybody is scheming and doing all these other things because they think what they're doing is what's best for the realm, but they really don't have any idea.
Or for their own house, really.
For their own
house. It's not what's best for the realm.
Yeah. So, so cut away from there, you see Rhaenyra and Laenor are actually out walking the beach. And so they are having a conversation about ducks and geese. And so
never look at them the same.
Right. So she's talking about how she prefers duck, and she believes that he prefers goose or something along those lines. But essentially, they're making a deal that Laenor is a homosexual, and so he's a gay guy, and so he prefers men. And so she's like, "Hey, I'm okay with you having your appetites met however you choose to have it, as long as you let me have my appetites met how I want it." And Laenor agrees to that because neither one of them want this marriage. Neither one of them want to do this. So they cut away from that, and so the two of them, so they seem to be happy with the union as well, because now they both get what they want. And so then we kind of cut back to
that was, by the way, Luke, it felt like a big reveal, but it's in the books. He's gay in the books. Mm-hmm. We also, we've seen this kind of instance before in Game of Thrones with Renly Baratheon and Loras Tyrell. Everybody knew that they were gay, and it was not. It was just, it's not accepted in that time, especially by the new faith, and it's just crazy to think that this is a thing then, but
Yeah. Well, and one of the interesting things I thought was that they had a conversation afterwards. Rhea and Corlys have a conversation after the king has departed, and he says, this is a good union. This is good for us. This will only be good. And she lays down kind of she has her Otto Hightower moment as well, and she says, this may not be as good of a deal as you think it is. Like this could be disastrous for us if the realm fractures, and our grandchildren and our son will be put in danger if she ascends to the throne, and he doesn't see it that way. And then they also talk about their son's appetites, because she knows what her son is. She knows that he's gay, and even the father knows that he's gay, but he's in denial about it, saying, hey, you know what, he's young, it'll get out of his system, and he'll do his duty when the time comes, or he'll change his, but it's like,
he'll pry the gay away.
Yeah, right, exactly. So that, I thought that was interesting, So we cut back to King's Landing, and Alicent is out in the out by the weirwood tree, and we see Larys Strong, who is the crippled son of Lord Strong, the Hand of the King. And so he seems to me like we've talked about this before. I think we said in episode 3, I think we said he seems to me to be the Varys character from the
Absolutely.
original Game of Thrones, where he
Absolutely.
just kind of listens
Observes
and
everything.
observes and
Yeah.
then passes knowledge on. So he has a conversation with Alicent about how sick the queen, the princess must be, because after all, the Maester brought her a tea, after that night that she came back and everything, and so I think, Darren, you had correctly highlighted this is the second, so talk a little bit about that. So
Second Alicent moment that starts, her down a dark path. This is where she realizes that she shouldn't have trusted Rhaenyra, and now she's without her daddy because of it.
yeah,
Because Larry Strong, he's nicknamed the Clubfoot because his ankle was born sideways.
right.
So he's crippled and he gets put with all the women. He gets to listen to all the gossip and just he's not a good guy. And he puts this thought into Alicent's head about Rhaenyra actually maybe did have some relations
Right.
with who they at this point still think it's Daemon.
Correct. Everyone assumes
about
that
the
it's
morning
Daemon.
after pill.
Yeah.
Yep. So remember, Otto said you have to prepare Aegon to be
To rule.
To rule.
Yep.
And this is where she's starting to realize, well, now I'm starting to see what Daddy meant.
Yeah. Yeah. And Larys,
Listen to your parents.
Yeah. Mom, your parents don't know anything. They don't know anything, and so you can't listen to them about anything. So, excuse me. Thank you. So, Larys talks to her and kind of whispers into her ear. And so he strikes me as a kind of a combination between Varys and Tyrion, because he has this deformity. Everybody underestimates him. And so he spends a lot of time
Bastards
in
broken
books.
Things. And
and he knows things, and all that. So there's a kind of combination, I think, with him. But yeah, he really gets the wheels turning for Alicent. So on the return voyage from, we then cut away to the return voyage from the
Driftmark.
Yep. Thank you. Driftmark. And Sir Criston Cole, he's an honorable man.
Yeah.
He's a knight. He's an honorable man, and he is in love with Rhaenyra. And he makes this desperate plea to her, because of his honor. He feels deeply torn up about the fact that he and her had a relationship together. He broke his code, his vow, and it's tearing him up inside. And he wants to be with her. And so he says, can we just run away together? Just you and I will get married. We'll leave all this stuff behind. And she, I wouldn't say laughs at him, but she's like, I am the realm. Like I am
the crown.
I am the crown, and I can't just walk away.
Which is a great line.
Yeah. I can't just walk away from this. And so you can see it just kind of devastates him. And he's not the same after. He's not been the same. Yeah, exactly. He's spiraling out of control, or he's spiraling.
Starts to spiraling.
Yeah.
So he's been spiraling since the night.
Since the night
of the sex.
Right.
Since the sex happened.
Right.
Spiraling.
Yeah. So it's been rough on him because he does feel different. And I'm not saying that she doesn't care for him. I think she clearly does care for him.
Very excited by the deal she made with.
Correct. Yeah.
With Laenor.
Yep.
She was like, "Oh, great! I'm gonna get to have my pie too."
Right.
My pie, Criston.
And his response back to her was, she says, I made a deal with Laenor that we'll be able to continue. And the first thing out of his mouth is, "So I get to be your whore." And it's like,
fair, dude. Fair, yeah.
Yep. And she did not see it that way, So she whether he fails to see what that really is like, look, she has no choice but to go through with this particular duty, but you could still love each other and still have a relationship, and you just won't be the husband. You won't be you won't be her partner or anything like that out in public. And that's difficult. That takes I could see where he is, because he is a man of honor, because he is a man of integrity. He can't be the
she
side
comes
piece.
into the next scene.
Yeah, he can't be the side piece. And so,
that leads to that next scene.
Yeah,
with Allison.
Right. So they return back to King's Landing, and basically right off the boat, the Queen asks Sir Criston to come to her quarters, and she then this is your third moment here, Darren. So to walk us through this.
Just a massive moment, and people don't really may not understand right now how massive a moment this was. But man, she went looking for $1 and found $100.
Correct. Yeah.
She went and she was questioning Christian about the night Rhaenyra ran off, thinking she's talking about her and Daemon. And boom, she gets gift wrapped this gift of a man, this man with integrity.
Yeah.
And he spills the beans about him and Rhaenyra, which, doesn't immediately, she doesn't run off immediately to Viserys and say, well, it has to be Aegon now.
Yep.
This is the moment where it breaks her, and she is like, I am now going to war with you.
Yep.
All.
Yep.
To get my son to be the heir to the Iron Throne and be big for my family. The Hightowers are a massive family, so they run Old Town, which is where all the mace, Sam, he went and it's where the maesters train.
Right.
Sam went there. The library's there. Met Jorah there. Cured him of grayscale there. Ooh, that scene. So the Hightowers run Old Town. They are a very, very powerful family. And when they call their banners to war, they wear green. And that will come in a little later on. But this is the moment that sends her into saying, I'm coming for you all.
Yeah.
For Aegon.
Yeah. And I mean, you could see how desperate this confession is for Sir Criston. He almost needs this. He almost needs this confession to someone. And because of his honor, because of his integrity, his request to the Queen is that she kill him.
Yeah.
Instead of punishing me, I would ask your mercy that you just kill me. Because it's really killing him inside. And we'll see this at the end of the episode. We'll see.
He's like, you can go. And he's like, all right, I'm not going to ask what you mean by that. I'm out of here too.
Yeah. So
he got a gift himself.
He did, and he didn't, I think she would have been doing him a favor if she did kill him, but I don't think she's done with him yet. We'll just say I don't think she's done with him.
Yep. Not close.
Yep. So he, I think she will. Yeah, we'll see what happens there. But when they did return from King's Landing, basically Viserys falls out of the cart
like a drunk bastard. But
he falls. Well. Yeah, he falls right out of the carriage and kind of gets rushed in. So then we kind of cut away to Viserys being treated for a disease. Oh. The disease that he has is kind of progressing, and so. It was pretty nasty. We're starting to see some really disgusting stuff kind of come up with this. So Darren, what Patty Considine was on a podcast earlier this week and kind of confirmed for everyone what it is that he actually Viserys actually has in this, and then kind of talk about what this means for him overall. Yeah.
So you've seen from the very first episode that his body is starting to just rot away, and he's whether it's he was cut from the Iron Throne and he didn't get his tetanus shot or whatnot. He's gotten some things going on with him, and this was the episode that took the cake on up there with the grayscale scene in the original Game of Thrones of the most grossest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty.
But it is leprosy. His body is literally falling apart. Yeah. And it's just Again, he was never supposed to be king.
He was never
fell
meant to
into his
rule.
lap, and the Iron Throne has rejected him since.
Yeah.
This scene, though, involves a question from Viserys to Lord Strong, the Hand of the King. What is my legacy?
Right.
What will they say about my reign?
Right. Will they sing songs about me?
Well, they sing songs about me, and no.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's not a terrible reign.
Right.
And at this moment, it's actually one of the better reigns.
Right.
He followed Jaehaerys, which is widely considered the greatest reign in Westeros history.
Right.
Most peaceful. It was like 72 years he was on the throne.
Yeah. Somebody must be the letdown.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So it's like going from, Die Hard 1 to Die Hard 2. It's really hard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's hard to make two sequels. It's hard for the sequel to be better than the first.
Yeah. And so, at this moment in history, you would look at his reign as like, it's not been bad.
Right.
They weren't all bad, or they were all bad. Anyway, what his legacy will be when we get to Game of Thrones, though, is completely different.
Right.
And there's a lot of crazy shit that happens.
Right.
So it's just a really strong scene. And you can really see the decline of Paddy Considine's Viserys throughout the series so far. And it makes an even bigger jump to the next week when we get to talking about that. So
yeah,
that leads into the Game of Thrones wedding.
Yeah.
Which,
hey, nothing but roses and
what could go
unicorns.
wrong at a Game of Thrones wedding? We've gotten the Red wedding, Joffrey's wedding, Sansa's wedding to Ramsay.
Yeah.
Not good for the soul.
Right.
And I'll let you talk about some of the big points here. But man, the music, if it wasn't if there wasn't precedent about bad weddings at Game of Thrones,
right, this
music would have still had my heart racing.
Yeah. Yeah. It was sinister, to say the least. So the Valyrians show up with their ships and their dragons. And so they walk in, and they're greeted by the king, and so we're gonna have a celebration, the royal wedding and all that. So pretty much
to be one for the history books.
Right. So we do see introduced to the king. We'll kind of go back to the very opening scene where we see Rhea Royce's cousin arrives and is introduced to the king and Rhaenyra, and she apologizes to him or I shouldn't say apologizes, but she provides her condolences to him on the passing of his cousin and stuff. And so he does come back up a little bit later, but Daemon arrives unexpectedly, not invited, and you can see the shock on Viserys's face, and it's just another indication of his weakness. Instead of grabbing the Kingsguard and telling them to get that MFer out of this place, he tells them to bring an extra chair, put an extra chair over there, and he's going to be there. So, and so he and
the queen is not here yet, by the way.
Correct. Yeah. At this point, it's just Rhaenyra, the king, and then the Valyrian folks who have arrived. So the full family, Lord Corlys, Rhaena, Laena, and Leonor, the son who's going to be getting married. So, yep. So they are up there, and then Viserys starts to give a speech, and he gets a little bit into the speech, and all of a sudden, Alicent shows up, and everybody, and you talk about an entrance, everybody in the place, the king stops dead in his speech, and everybody in the place turns around and stands up because the queen is about to come in, and she is wearing green, and we get a quick, we think, oh, okay, well, that, we don't really know what that means, but we're told very, very quickly as she's walking down. Again, this is what made me kind of think of Larys Strong as a Tyrion type guy, because he read a lot, he knew a lot of his history, knew all that stuff, and so he explains to his brother that what's his brother
Harwin
yeah.
Breakbones,
right? Harwin,
the strongest knight in the Seven Kingdoms.
Yeah, so Harwin Strong, he explains to his brother, Larys explains to his brother Harwin that that when the High Towers go to war, they call their banners, and it's the color green.
The High Tower in Old Town burns green.
So she's here for battle.
Yep.
She gives Rhaenyra platitudes, but you can see Rhaenyra and her both
she ain't
know
playing anymore.
Yep, that things have changed. She knows the truth, and things have changed. And Rhaenyra, you can see the concern on Rhaenyra's face. So Viserys again is shown for his weakness, finishes his speech, and then everybody kind of goes along in their festivities and things of that nature. So Laenor's lover is a
Joffrey.
guy by the name of Joffrey, who everybody named Joffrey in this series dies a very awful death.
As they should.
Yes, yeah. Well, at least for so far, 1 for 1 at least.
Yeah.
So Joffrey thinks that he's got one over on Rhaenyra, and he believes that he's identified Sir Criston as her lover, and so he basically sidles up to the side of Sir Criston and says, "Hey, I'm your counterpart on the other side, and so it's, I'm gonna do what I have to do, and you do what you have to do." And
they spin their hands.
Yeah, right. And Joffrey thinks that what he's doing is a good thing, but he doesn't understand the internal conflict that's happening inside of Criston. And so they part company, but they'll be reunited here shortly. So the next scene then is Daemon and Rhaenyra having a conversation. Well, first we get a little bit of Daemon flirting with somebody else. So who was he flirting with? And then eventually he moves on to
you remember
Rhaenyra.
that 12-year-old girl Viserys went on a walk with?
Right. Yeah.
She's now grown 4 years later.
Right.
Apparently into a full-grown woman in 4 years, but you know how that Game of Thrones aging goes.
Yes.
So that's a pretty big moment. They're gonna flirt, and they're gonna smash. Moving forward. So
right.
I guess
she's betrothed to a guy from Bravos, a highborn guy from Bravos,
right?
But has not been married. They keep pushing off the wedding, and you'll find out why, I think, a little bit later. But yeah. I
was gonna say, I don't think that they addressed it in this episode, other than saying it's been pushed off, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a big moment for them going forward, because it will also offer some counter evidence to something else that happens on the show starting next week. But then Daemon goes over to Rhaenyra, and they speak in their High Valyrian, because that's their own little world when they do that.
Yep.
Their privacy, how they have privacy. But Viserys sees this from afar, and he's like, "What is going on?"
Yep.
And then all hell breaks loose,
because he suspects that they've slept together. He believes that they've slept together. Yep.
He probably doesn't want to believe it, but he probably thinks that they have.
Yeah.
And then it's broken up. Finally, we get some violence at a Game of Thrones wedding, and it's Sir Criston Cole beating the absolute crap out of Joffrey. But also pretty much beats up Laenor as well. As Laenor tried to defend his lover. So
right. So I think he's sorry, go ahead, finish your thought.
I was just going to say, so that that conversation between Joffrey and Criston, that was his breaking point in this series, and he starts to go off like a samurai, and he's going to kill himself, and gets stopped by Alicent, and those two now are tied at the hip. not in the way you may think, but they are definitely tied at the hip now moving forward.
Yeah. And during the fight, we see Rhaenyra get knocked to the ground. Daemon disappears. It doesn't, not sure what happens to him, but he just vanishes. But Rhaenyra is thrown to the ground. Lord Strong signals to his son Harwin to get in there and take care of whatever it is that's going on. And he ends up rescuing the princess and pulling her out of the fray. So while Kristen destroys the face of Joffrey, so I
that's
think,
a little flame that just got ignited.
Right, exactly. So that is that's a foreshadowing of things to come for that. So going back to Sir Kristen, I think he takes out all of his rage and all of his frustration for being played by Rhaenyra on Joffrey, because he knows that Joffrey is basically it's disgusting to him that Laenor and Rhaenyra are not honorable people, and they're not going to enter into this sacred, what I think, and this is my interpretation, he is disgusted at all of this, and Joffrey just happens to be the breaking point for him, saying what he says to him earlier, and I think Sir Kristen just is he's had it with the whole politics. He's had it with the whole King's Landing, everything that's involved in King's Landing and these highborn people and how they do stuff. And I think Joffrey just pushes his buttons to the point where he just snaps and he's done. He's absolutely done. And like you said, he goes out to where the weirwood tree is, and he essentially is going to commit seppuku and kill himself. And he is.
I almost saw it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
We'll say he's saved by Alicent, but I don't know. I don't know. I think she would be doing him a favor if she were to kill him. Or have him killed.
They have a story together, those two, moving forward.
Yeah.
And excited to see how it plays out, if it plays out the same in the books. But it was funny because at first I was like, oh, he's killing Joffrey because he doesn't want anybody else knowing the secret. I'm like, oh man, there's more to it than that. So I think you nailed it.
Yeah. I don't think. Yes, I think that's one of the primary things, is that he doesn't want him to know the secret. But I think overall he's just disgusted with everything. It goes against everything that he is.
Yep.
All of this.
You just think about all the honor he has, and how he's disgusted. He's disgraced his honor, and
and they set that up. They set that up so beautifully through the episode. That this is really his honor and his integrity is really weighing. It's unbearable for him.
You nailed it last week in the rundown or the recap when you said he has the feelings and she doesn't.
Yeah,
that was the boiling point. Well, not boiling point, but that was when the stove got turned on.
Yeah.
And it didn't reach boiling point yet, but you nailed that last week. So
all in all,
to end it though, with we finally get to the wedding.
Yeah, and as true to form, it was a we actually get a wedding. They end up doing a shotgun wedding between Laenor and Rhaenyra. Which the king collapses at the end of it. So, Stacey goes, I think he's dead. And I go, he's not dead. I said, I know for certain he is not dead.
Yeah.
But his
collapse actually make you believe he died earlier in the episode during the scene.
There multiple times. Like there's been multiple times through this series where I'm like, that's it. He's done. And then the guy just keeps coming back. They keep wheeling him out there, like I think the Meisters.
I think he's sitting in every scene in the trailer for next week.
What was it? The Don Dario. Maybe they just keep bringing him back, and it's like, hey, it's how many times you been back? 7 times, man. 7
times.
So, but all in all,
how many times you been hit by lightning?
Yeah. So
seven times. Wow, 77 times.
66 times in the head. In the head. Oh man. The Great Outdoors. Such a beautiful movie. Beautiful movie. John Hughes and Dan Aykroyd and John Candy. Amazing John Candy. Amazing. Okay. So final thoughts, Darren. Go.
Well, man, my final thoughts on this episode, and then a little bit of a segue to the next week preview, is this episode. Again, it didn't feel like there was a lot happening, but a lot happened that will have massive ramifications throughout the rest of this series, this season and next. And ramifications you'll feel in Game of Thrones when you finally get there. Yeah. And it just was, it's been so beautifully put together that even in maybe a slower episode, my heart was racing during the wedding scene. It was great to see the setup, the pattern of the characters in this episode really roll to that final scene, which is just a boom. That's the volcano blowing up.
Right.
And what we get to see next week is, we talked about it before the show. We're hoping we get the send off of the younger Alicent and Rhaenyra actresses, because if we don't and they just do a time jump and have these new actresses, who knows, maybe the views of the Nerd Rundown recap go up because people are like, what the heck happened?
Right. We'll see
which way I want it to go, but either way, we get the time jump next week, where they are now like in their young 30s, Rhaenyra and Alicent, and they are totally different characters at that point in the story.
Yeah,
with offspring. And some drama around the offspring. We won't talk too much about it, so we'll wait till we get next week.
But, we'll wait till.
And I'm excited to see how it all really unfolds over about a 10 to 12 year, maybe even more time jump.
Yeah, I think it. Yeah, we'll definitely see, because I think to kind of dovetail off your thoughts there, I think sometimes you get filler episodes, and especially as things get later in seasons, you get these, I wouldn't say throwaway episodes, but they're like filler episodes, because you have 10 and you got to do 10 because everybody says you got to do 10 when you really only have material for 8, and so you get these kind of filler episodes. These do not feel like filler episodes. These are huge character development episodes. They are huge plot development episodes. And if this so far is beautifully directed, beautifully written, and beautifully executed to this point where I'm like, please stick the landing on this, because your setup so far has been breathtaking, just absolutely breathtaking. So I'm excited for the show. I can't wait to watch it. Like you said, I think last week, you were full on back in Game of Thrones mode, and that's how I feel too. Like, I am back in the Game of Thrones universe, and I am. I know Morg is a little, we're all bitter. We're all a little bitter, but I don't let it stop you from watching this, because it is so good. It is so good, and we are lucky. Yeah,
that's right. He isn't.
Yep, we are lucky to be fans right now. So, anyhow, thanks for joining me tonight, Darren. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
it's always good having you on the show.
They're really good at the time jumps. I'm really surprised at how good the time jumps are.
They have been really good.
Keep on that, please. Yep. Keep landing the time jumps. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course.
Love talking Game of Thrones and the world of Westeros with you.
It's been awesome. So cool.
Interact with us online, please.
Yeah, please, for sure. I know there's folks out there that are watching this and everything. So keep watching.
And Banana listened to the recap last week and had 14 more questions with it as we were listening to the recap. So I know we didn't cover everything. If you have questions, leave us a comment.
Yeah, we can flesh it out in the comments for sure. Yeah. So, well, anyhow, thanks for joining us this week on the Nerd Rundown Recap, and we will see you all next week. See ya. Bye.
Good job, buddy.